For this video, we will use a base human mesh to start us off with the right dimensions. We'll then proceed to mainly use the loop, cut, and add primitive tool to arrange the initial blockout process for our basic bot. We'll also employ flat shading to check out the proportions and appeal of our basic bot silhouette. Okay, let's start modeling the first basic bot. The first thing we're going to do is move up to the top right hand corner here of our 3D viewport and click and drag out a new window. And then with the middle click, we're just going to click and drag our toolbar across if you need to. Then on the top left here, we're going to change from 3D viewport over to image editor. And now we can open our concept sketch, which you can find in the project files. I'm just going to go open and import our image there. And make a little bit of room for our 3D viewport. Okay, let's select our cube and hitting the full stop or period key on the number pad, we automatically frame our mesh. Now the first thing we're going to do is hit the N on the keyboard whilst over the 3D viewport, which shows our various transform options. And we're going to dial in the dimensions first as a rough approximation of our basic bot, which consists of some identifiable elements. Things like a TV, sort of a live TV station camera, some Wi-Fi like antennas, little LEDs and panels and little screws as well. So we have a guideline at least for the approximate dimension. If you're finding it difficult to visualize the true scale of it, I would highly recommend you download a base human mesh. Here is a fantastic one from Master Xeon. So if we were to download it here from Blend Swap, and then we can go up to File, Append, and select our man-clean.blend, and go in through our objects and select the model. And I'm going to scale it down to the rough height of a human being. So let's go with 1.9 and Control A, apply rotation and scale. And now we have a nice guide for our reference here. So jumping back to the box, let's say a TV camera is, some of the big ones can be nearly the size of a human head. So I'm just going to scale the entire robot down like that. I think it can be significantly narrower. So it feels like that's the kind of size. Maybe a bit smaller. Yeah, maybe something like that. Okay, and as I am a bit OCD, let's just add in some more rounded numbers here. Cool, that seems good. And we need to do our due diligence here and apply the scale, as this will help us avoid errors when it comes to adding modifiers and operations later. So Control A, apply, scale. Okay, we can hit N again as we are done with that panel. And for the time being, we are done with our reference object here. So I'm going to move it with the M key, click New Collection, and call it Hide. And now we can uncheck the hide here. You can also use the H key to hide, but I find that I need to hide other objects. And then when unhiding with Alt H, you always bring back the items that perhaps you wanted to hide permanently. So let's do just that. Okay, let's Alt G to move our robot back into the center, and again hit the period or full stop to move in and align it to the viewport. So with our approximate scale set, we can start creating the base geometry. So with the tab key, we can jump into edit mode, and the first thing I think we want to do is add a cut here for the edge. So I'm just going to hit Control and R and do a cut and move it down ever so slightly. And then hitting 3 on the top row of the keyboard jumps us into polygon mode. And there we can select our top poly and our bottom poly, hit S on the keyboard and just scale it down ever so slightly. Now I'm not committing to a specific angle here, and I'm just sort of doing it by eye. And the only thing I do want to do is this sketch was drawn as if from along the lens, so it's nearly isometric, but not quite. So I'm going to mimic that in the viewport here by hitting N on the keyboard, going to View, And on the focal length, I'm going to increase it. But first I'm going to use the scroll wheel to zoom out to roughly the kind of perspective I want. And then use the focal length to move in. And then hit the N on the keyboard. And that gives us a much better sort of parity between these two images, and it helps us assess dimensions and scale a little bit better. So with the 2 on the number row, which selects edge, I'm just going to hold Alt and click this edge. And there we can grab and move it down just ever so slightly. Actually, I think it's probably good where it was. Let's grab the top and move it up. Okay, that's looking good. Now let's tackle this weird pack underneath. And for that, we can use the Add Primitive tool here. So I'm just going to select the bottom part and draw out a cube roughly and extrude it down like so. I'm going to hit 5 on the number pad now to jump into orthographic mode so we can see exactly what we're working with. And hitting Z and moving over to the wireframe option. As a quick aside, I realize I was quite accurate in drawing the box here underneath and aligning it to the center. But if, for some reason, yours isn't aligned as much as you'd like, you can open the side panel with N on the keyboard and make sure the X and Y axis here are completely zeroed out. And this should bring it back into the center. And now we can move things down ever so slightly. Again, jump into edit mode, hit Control R, and cut a loop cut. Again, 3 on the keyboard to select our poly here. We're going to scale this in like so. And the bottom one, we're going to scale in even more like so. Kind of roughly mimicking the angle here. Okay, jumping back out into solid mode. I think we can select this loop of polys here and just scale it ever so slightly. Okay, looking good. Let's go for these little winged parts here. I'm just going to draw out from the side here, something like that. And that follows the normals nicely. So again, if we jump into a side angle here, I'm just holding Alt and that's snapping to view. We can just make sure that those 2 items are aligned a little bit better. So I'm going to hit G and Y to move it along the Y axis. Let's jump into wireframe to do this. Okay, and G and Y. Those are much better aligned. Let's go back to solid mode here. And on poly, I'm just going to scale this poly down. And we can scale the other poly up. And scale it along the Y a little. Okay, that's looking good. I'm going to just jump out into object mode here and move it away from the body, as there will be a bit of a hinge or some kind of mechanical device here to rotate this part. And we want that to also be on the other side. So a simple and quick way to do that is let's just jump over, add a modifier, go down to mirror, and the mirror object we want is the base here. So let's just click that. And it flips over. If sometimes it'll sort of flip vertically or on the wrong axis, sometimes you can fix that by applying rotation and scale or just playing with the axes here. Okay, that's looking good. Let's jump on for the main camera part. Again, let's select the Make Primitive tool. And I'm going to drag a cube here so we can start dragging out. Hold down Shift and release, and then we have a perfect cube. Now we can move that into position again with the G, something like that. Looks good. And G and Y to move it back. Now we can jump into edit mode. We need to move the back of this considerably back, something like that. Jumping into wireframe, 2 on the keyboard, select that edge, and hit G and Y and move it back. Okay, and back into solid mode here, and tab out into object mode. Let's keep sort of looking around, hitting 5 on the number pad to jump into perspective. I think this angle here is feeling a little more acute on the sketch. So I'm just going to jump into edit mode and scale Okay, we have a few more objects to put into place before we've finished our blocking out. And that is a sort of a pack unit on the back here. Let's do some asymmetry. And I'm going to draw the antenna out from the normals. And then if we go into the side view, switching to orthographic again with 5, we can rotate the, what is a sort of Wi-Fi aerial up so it is horizontal, and hit G. I am going to go into edit mode here as well as wireframe. Hit 1 on the top row number pad and just grab these vertices with the drag tool. Okay, that's got the approximate shape now, and we can duplicate that, and we can do it with the Alt and D and then hit X. As a reminder, the Alt and D duplicates but links the object properties still. So if we go onto the mesh options here, we see a little 2 next to the cube we just created. This is because both these objects share the same mesh, basically. Okay, let's jump back into solid mode, hit 5 on our keyboard. Okay, we have blocked out our robot forms, and now is a good opportunity just to check how close we are to the sketch. And as well, we can reinitiate our base human model here, just to see if the size feels right. So I'm just going to invert the selection here and move it around. It feels kind of good to me. We can also hide our human and check the silhouette by going to lighting flat and deselecting outline. This might give us a better idea of the type of silhouette. It's quite a boxy thing, but I think we can ascertain the front and the back, and it reads okay. Okay, I think we are safe to move on to the next section. So let's not forget to save our work, and I'll see you in the next video.